When you think of the Titanic, you picture an epic maritime tragedy that shocked the world. But history is littered with disasters that are just as gut-wrenching. From overcrowded ferries during wartime evacuations to modern vessels undone by design flaws and brutal weather, each story reveals a side of maritime travel that's both fascinating and tragically human. So buckle up as we set sail into history's darker waters and uncover the real-life events that continue to haunt the seas. What would you do if you found yourself caught in one of history's deadliest evacuations at sea? On January 30th, 1945, as World War II raged on, the MV Wilhelm Gustloff was pressed into service as an evacuation ship on the Baltic Sea. Originally built as a cruise liner, she was repurposed to transport refugees, wounded soldiers, and civilians desperate to escape the advancing Soviet forces. In a cruel twist of fate, a Soviet submarine torpedoed the vessel, and within minutes, the ship's modest hull was overwhelmed by icy waters. Despite being small compared to ocean liners of its day, the Gustloff carried nearly 10,000 souls, a staggering number considering the chaos unfolding on board. Many of those aboard were innocent families caught in the desperate scramble for survival, and this tragedy, often overlooked in the annals of wartime history, remains the deadliest maritime disaster ever recorded, shrouded in mystery and the bitter realities of war. Ever wondered how a seemingly minor collision could ignite one of the deadliest disasters at sea? On the foggy night of December 20th, 1987, in the Philippines, the overcrowded MV Doña Paz set out on what should have been an ordinary voyage. Instead, she collided head-on with the oil tanker MT Vector. The collision instantly sparked a raging inferno, and within moments, both vessels were engulfed in flames. Over 4,000 lives were lost in this horrific accident, many of them unsuspecting passengers who had boarded the ferry without a hint of the impending doom. What makes this disaster even more chilling is the fact that the Doña Paz was so overloaded that official records barely accounted for all of the people on board. Amid the chaos, rescue operations were rendered nearly impossible by the explosion's sheer intensity. The MV Doña Paz disaster stands as a reminder of how neglecting safety measures and overcrowding can turn a routine journey into an unimaginable nightmare. Can you imagine a steamboat explosion on America's mighty rivers, claiming a death toll that outstripped the Titanic's? On April 27, 1865, the SS Sultana embarked on a journey along the Mississippi River, carrying soldiers returning home after the Civil War. Overcrowded far beyond her capacity, the vessel's boilers suddenly exploded without warning. In a flash, the ship was ripped apart and pandemonium ensued as passengers scrambled for safety in the rushing waters. The explosion claimed more than 1,800 lives, many of whom were young men who had already sacrificed so much on the battlefield. A lesser-known detail is that the SS Sultana's boiler design had been a ticking time bomb from the start, and warnings about overcrowding had been ignored in favor of profit. The catastrophic loss of life on that day not only devastated countless families, but also exposed the grave dangers inherent in early steam-powered travel, making the SS Sultana one of America's most under-discussed maritime tragedies. What happens when a grand ocean liner meets a hidden iceberg of misfortune in a narrow river? On the night of May 29, 1914, the RMS Empress of Ireland, celebrated for its elegance and modern amenities, was navigating the fog-laden St. Lawrence River. Without warning, the liner struck a submerged object that compromised its watertight compartments. Within a mere 15 minutes, the majestic vessel began to list uncontrollably, and panic spread among its passengers. Over 1,000 lives were lost in this swift disaster, a tragedy that unfolded far from the open ocean and in conditions that offered little room for escape. What makes this event particularly heartbreaking is that many of the passengers were caught completely off guard, enjoying a leisurely cruise before being thrust into a fight for survival. Though it never captured the global imagination like the Titanic did, the Empress of Ireland's sinking is a grim chapter in maritime history, marked by the quick nature of its demise and the profound impact on those who survived and those left behind. behind. Have you ever heard of a ship so poorly maintained that a day meant for celebration turned into a deadly catastrophe? In the summer of 1904, the SS General Slocum set sail from New York Harbor loaded with churchgoers excited for a picnic cruise. What was meant to be a joyous outing quickly turned into a nightmare when the aging vessel caught fire and capsized in the East River. In a matter of minutes, over 1,000 lives were extinguished in a blaze that left survivors in shock and a city in mourning. Eyewitnesses recalled the terror as the ship's deck became a chaotic scene of panicked passengers, many of whom had no idea how to react to the sudden disaster. A particularly chilling detail is the fact that the SS General Slocum lacked basic safety features such as adequate lifeboats and proper emergency protocols, oversights that directly contributed to the scale of the tragedy. This disaster not only reshaped New York's maritime regulations, but also serves as a lasting testament to the importance of safety in an era of industrial progress. What would you do if you were on a ferry that sank in the blink of an eye, trapping nearly 2,000 souls in a watery grave? On September 26, 2002, the MV La Joola, a Senegalese government ferry, departed on a routine journey across the treacherous waters near the Gambia. Overloaded well beyond its capacity, the vessel was ill-prepared for the sudden onset of a violent storm. Structural weaknesses and the sheer weight of excess passengers caused the ship to capsize almost immediately, engulfing approximately 1,863 lives in the turbulent sea. Amid the chaos, many passengers were left without life jackets, and rescue efforts were hampered by the storm's fury. A little-known fact is that the overcrowding had long been a known issue. Warnings from crew and inspectors were repeatedly ignored in favor of meeting strict schedules and cutting costs. The MV La Joola disaster is a sobering example of what can happen when safety regulations are sidelined, resulting in one of the deadliest maritime tragedies of the modern era. Could you imagine a shipwreck where the victims were prisoners of a living nightmare, lost during the final days of a brutal war? In the waning moments of World War II, the SS Cap Arcona, once a luxurious ocean liner, was repurposed to transport concentration camp prisoners and civilian internees. On May 3, 1945, while docked, the vessel was bombed by Allied forces in a tragic case of mistaken identity and wartime chaos. Over 5,000 souls were caught in the blast, their fates sealed in the confusion of one of history's most hidden disasters. What's particularly harrowing is that many of those aboard had already endured unimaginable horrors, and their final moments were marked by confusion and terror as the ship was engulfed in flames and shattered by exploding munitions. The story of the SS Cap Arcona is cloaked in secrecy, with many of its details lost in the fog of war, yet its legacy remains a reminder of how the cruelty of conflict can extend even to those who are most vulnerable. What would you say if I told you a lavish passenger ship capsized in the heart of a bustling American city, turning a day of celebration into pure chaos? On July 24, 1915, the SS Eastland, a beautifully designed vessel famed for its luxurious interiors, was hosting a company picnic along the Chicago River. In an unexpected twist of fate, the ship suddenly began to list and then capsize, trapping hundreds of passengers in a disastrous overturn. In less than a minute, 844 lives were lost as the once majestic boat became a death trap in the midst of a thriving urban setting. The disaster was compounded by the fact that the ship's design had been compromised by modifications that made it dangerously top-heavy, a detail that only came to light after the tragic event. Eyewitnesses described the scene as one of utter pandemonium, with cries for help echoing along the riverbanks. The SS Eastland tragedy not only upended the lives of those aboard, but also forced a nationwide reckoning with maritime safety and engineering standards. Have you ever wondered how a state-of-the-art ferry could transform into a floating inferno in mere minutes? In the early hours of February 3, 2006, the MV Al-Salam Boccaccio 98 set out on what was expected to be a routine crossing of the Red Sea near Sudan. Despite its modern appearance, the vessel was grossly overcrowded and lacked sufficient safety measures. As the ship sailed through increasingly severe weather conditions, water began seeping in at an alarming rate. In a matter of minutes, the ferry turned into a chaotic disaster zone, and a catastrophic fire broke out, consuming over 1,000 lives in its wake. Eyewitnesses recalled the terrifying moments as passengers scrambled desperately for any semblance of safety, while the crew struggled to manage the unfolding calamity. A particularly lesser-known detail is that, despite its modern construction, the vessel had not undergone rigorous safety drills or equipment checks, failures that ultimately sealed its fate. This ship's disaster serves as a chilling reminder that technological advances mean little without strict adherence to safety protocols. What if a supposedly modern ferry met its icy end in the dark, stormy Baltic Sea, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and heartbreak? On the night of September 28, 1994, the MS Estonia set sail across the Baltic with high hopes and cutting-edge design. However, as a fierce storm raged, the vessel began to list uncontrollably. Within minutes, a catastrophic failure of the bow door allowed water to flood in, and the ship broke apart in the freezing depths. A total of 852 passengers lost their lives in a disaster that shocked even the most seasoned maritime experts. Survivors recounted a surreal scene of chaos where clear skies turned to darkness and the promise of safety quickly evaporated. Investigators later revealed that a combination of design flaws and communication failures during the crisis had contributed significantly to the rapid sinking. The MS Estonia remains one of the most baffling maritime disasters of modern times, a stark testament to how even the most advanced ships can fall victim to nature's fury when proper safeguards fail. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye.